Canada is home to about how many francophones? The study guide tells us that the answer is 7 million. So it says today there are about 7 million francophones, people who speak French as their first language. Let's move on to the next question. Question 13. Who recognized that Québécois form a nation within a united Canada in 2006? Was it the Prime Minister, Parliament, House of Commons, or the Queen? So pretty tricky question. The answer is the third choice, the House of Commons. Let's move on to our next question. Which is the most spoken non-official language in Canada today? So remember, our official languages are English and French, so it can't be one of those. And none of those is listed here. Spanish, Chinese, Tagalog, or Italian. The answer is Chinese. The study guide tells us that Chinese languages are the second most spoken at home after English in two of Canada's biggest cities. In Vancouver, 13% of the population speaks Chinese languages at home, and in Toronto, the number is 7%. Let's move on. Canadians have inherited the oldest continuous constitutional tradition in the world, paleontological remains from the Jurassic era. Yeah, I guess that's true. Immigrants from Europe. We do have old immigrants from Europe as far back as the Vikings, and First Nation settlements in North America. So here we are. This is our correct answer. And in referring to the Magna Carta from England, the Who We Are opening paragraph in the study guide tells us that Canadians have inherited the oldest continuous constitutional tradition in the world. Moving on. Question 16. What is the name of Canada's original constitutional document? The Canadian Constitution, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Commonwealth Act, or the British North America Act? Now, all of these are real documents. Let's figure out which is the correct answer. So Canada's original constitution document is called the British North America Act. And the study guides tell us that Canadian institutions uphold a commitment to peace, order, and good government, a key phrase in Canada's original constitution document in 1867, the British North America Act. 1867. Got to keep that date in mind. Let's get cracking. What are the origins of Canadian society today? Multicultural from all over the world. Canada is growing increasingly multicultural. English and French-speaking Christian civilizations brought here from Europe by settlers. A mix of First Nations, English and French, and British and American culture. So, you know what? All of these are indeed true, but we're looking for the origins of Canadian society today. The origins of our society today. Not how it looks now. And the study guide tells us that Canadian society today stems largely from the English-speaking and French-speaking Christian civilizations that were brought here from Europe by settlers. So yes, we do have a culture. It is English, French-speaking, and Christian, brought here from Europe by settlers. Now, when my parents immigrated here in the late 1960s, they did their best to fit in. They learned English instantly, and they acclimatized to Canadian culture as much as two Italian teenagers could. Now it's different, but, we hope that immigrants who are coming from a long way off are going to respect Canadian values and Canadian traditions. In addition to expecting Canadians to respect their traditions and their values, we need our traditions and our values to be respected as well. There's my 2 cents. And there's our correct answer. Let's go on to the next question. We are almost finished here. The federal government is required by law to provide services throughout Canada in English and French, services throughout Canada in English and French in Quebec, Services throughout Canada in English in Anglophone provinces, and services in French in Francophone provinces and communities. Services in English, French, and the non-official language most used in a particular area. So this might seem a little confusing, but if you do remember the Bicultural Act, the Languages Act of 1969, you will see easily that this is the correct answer. The federal government has to provide services throughout Canada in English and French. And the study guide tells us exactly that. In this section, the federal government is required by law to provide services throughout Canada in English and French. End of quote. Let's move on to our second last question, number 19. Which provinces have the most francophones? So obviously here we've got Quebec listed first. It would be easy to eliminate an option if Quebec wasn't listed first, but we make hard questions in our database. Let's go on through the process of elimination. Ontario's all next, so we can't eliminate one that way. So you're going to have to memorize this particular fact. Our answer here is Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba. You'll remember that there are some significant Francophone communities in New Brunswick, so that's your clue there. So our answer here is Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba. And the guide tells us, while the majority of Francophones live in Quebec, 1 million Francophones live in Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba, with a smaller presence in other provinces. So Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba are home to most of the Francophones that don't live in Quebec. Let's check my answer. Looks good. Okay, and let's go to our last question. We are almost done this test. Which province is the only officially bilingual province? Notice here that there is no Quebec, which might be, you might think it's an obvious answer. Our answer here is New Brunswick. And the study guide tells us New Brunswick is the only officially bilingual province. And that is it. Let's see our answer. And let's submit our test now. Just see how we did. Hooray! I scored 20 out of 20 questions, collecting 100 points. It says here your obtained grade is, and it's blank there because this is a section test, so it's just testing knowledge on one chapter, and it's not graded like the practice tests are, which pull 20 questions from all the chapters and test your knowledge, and then I would grade you here with like pass or fail. So let me just scroll through the answers here. Marjorie Turner Bailey, Olympic athlete, descendant of black loyalists. 30% of Aboriginal people are Métis. The Great Upheaval refers to the deportation of Acadians from the Maritimes. John Buchan, the 1930s Governor General, proposed a unity in diversity view on immigration. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 was the first document that guaranteed Aboriginal territorial rights. And sometimes this was not respected. Canadian institutions uphold peace, order, and good government. Acadians are descended from French colonists who settled in the maritime provinces. 3 beliefs that enabled Canadians to build a prosperous society in a rugged environment are hard work, fair play, and ordered liberty. The key phrase that sums up Canada in the original Constitution document is peace, order, and good government. Inuit means the people. Aboriginal and treaty rights are protected by the Constitution. Canada is home to about 7 million Francophones. The House of Commons in 2006 recognized that Quebecois form a nation within a united Canada. The most spoken non-official language in Canada today is Chinese. Canadians have inherited the oldest continuous constitutional tradition in the world. The name of Canada's original constitution document from 1867 is the British North America Act. The origins of Canadian society today are English and French-speaking Christian civilizations brought here from Europe by settlers. Number 18, the federal government is required by law to provide services throughout Canada in English and French. The provinces that have the most francophones are Quebec, Ontario, New Brunswick, and Manitoba. And finally, New Brunswick is the only officially bilingual province. Hope you enjoyed this video. We will see you back for more. Good luck studying for your Canadian citizenship test, and we wish you the best of luck.